I'm speaking today with visionary Marc David, international nutritional psychology expert. He's been teaching, consulting, and writing for the last 30 years. His concern for obesity, overeating, and people with pain around their body image and emotional challenges with food led him to found the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and he developed the dynamic eating psychology and mind-body nutrition. He's consulted for major resorts and companies, and welcome, Marc.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Dr. Sally.
So happy to writing about health and weight for about 30 years now. How did you get started?
Sometimes it's sort of the universe or life tends to pick us and choose us. That's sort of how it feels for me. I started out on planet Earth a very sickly, asthmatic infant who nearly died numerous times throughout, the first 2 years of my life from asthma. And that was followed by just an undiagnosed autoimmune condition, food allergies and sensitivities, and just a body that didn't feel equipped to be alive. And this was just back in the day when there wasn't too many answers coming from the medical profession. And at some point early on, I heard a rumor that fruits and vegetables were good for you because I was raised in the generation of, all the junk food and all the artificial stuff. And I changed my diet at about the age of 5, believe it or not.
Age of 5.
Yeah, coincidence or not, my health started to change. So that really got me, it got nutrition into my DNA. It made me a believer and a fanatic. And it's interesting because I set out to learn everything I possibly could in nutrition. And, back in the 1980s, you could almost read every book on nutrition because there wasn't a lot. And what I started noticing, and, at some point I started seeing clients to work with nutrition. And, of course, a lot of those clients would end up less about having health issues and more about wanting to lose weight. And, I was for sure brought up in the calories in, calories out model. But I quickly learned that wasn't very effective. So I also learned that you could tell people exactly what to do, what to eat, and they could be the smartest people around, and they could be successful and motivated, and they'd come back a week or two later and say, I know what you told me to do, I just couldn't do it. And it was sort of an epiphany for me. I realized, oh my goodness, if I don't understand the psyche of the eater, if I don't understand the mind and the heart and the soul of the eater, then I really don't know nutrition as it should be known. So that was really my sort of part of my progression anyway, from nutrition to then studying psychology, wanting to learn eating psychology, realizing that actually there wasn't any. There's eating disorder psychology, which is still not very well formed. But even so, what about the rest of us? What about people who don't have a clinical eating disorder, but overeat or binge eat or emotionally eat or want to lose 5 pounds or 15 pounds or 50 pounds or don't like their body? So I went on a crazy, inspired mission to learn everything I could about eating psychology. And here we are today in this conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. Good for you. So how would you say, let's pick maybe the last 5 years or even the last 10 years, how have your insights changed over that time?
Well, what I have learned is that we humans are so beautifully complex on the one hand, and we're very simple on the other hand. It's a bit of a paradox. And what I've learned is that oftentimes our challenges with food, though difficult to work with, oftentimes have a simple explanation or understanding. What I've learned is that food and our relationship with it is really a great teacher. And whatever challenges people are facing with food, overeating, binge eating, emotional eating, excess weight, it's not the enemy. Because so many people, they have their health challenges and they look at it as if it's the enemy. And if you look at something as if it's the enemy, you will look to fight it. And when you look to fight something, you will often adopt strategies that are aggressive and sometimes harmful, and that even put the body and mind in a stress response, which tend to be counterproductive to healing as well as higher thinking. So, what I've learned to do is to really drop in with people and look at food as a great teacher. What is it here to teach you? What is binge eating here to what's the lesson in it? Because when we learn the lesson that life is teaching us through the vehicle of food, through our eating challenges, then we can finally graduate. It's kind of like school. But if we don't hear the lesson, we tend to get left back a bit. We tend to keep learning the same challenges over and over again. Sometimes the lesson for, let's say, overeaters, a lot of people overeat because they eat poor quality food. And if you're eating poor quality junk food, the body registers not a lot of nutrient density, and it responds to that lack of nutritional density with a simple statement, and it's hunger. I'm hungry, feed me. I don't have enough. Even though you might have just eaten a ton of cake and a ton of ice cream, the body is still hungry for essential fats, or hungry for healthy protein, or hungry for micro or macronutrition. So the lesson might be a nutritional one, but the lesson might also be we're overeating because we're eating too fast and we don't pay attention, which will cause the brain to hunger for more. We might be overeating because I am having challenges with work or with raising children, and we often have symptoms that actually have nothing to do with seemingly the symptom itself. So our food issues are seldom about food, fascinatingly enough.
Absolutely, you put that so beautifully. Amazing, amazing. Um, I think you've touched on it. People are struggling with their weight because they're not mindful to what they're eating. They're overwhelmed with life experiences. They're struggling against it, so that when they struggle, they're fighting the universe. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Absolutely. And, when we are in stress, when we're fighting our weight, when we're fighting our appetite, that is essentially attacking our own body. And when the brain perceives fight, when the brain perceives attack, when the brain is perceiving stress, we will go into a literal physiologic stress response, which will mean some degree of sympathetic nervous system dominance, which can lead to digestive shutdown, which can lead to all kinds of digestive symptoms. It leads to poor assimilation of food. It leads to appetite deregulation because the body's not designed to optimally digest, assimilate, and, believe it or not, calorie burn in the stress state. So just our thoughts, the way we perceive the world, can alter our physiology in such a way that it locks in the very problem we're trying to fight and get rid of. So excess weight by itself can be caused by excess stress, directly or contributed to it. So we can no longer kind of sweep our inner world under the rug. We got to do work on self. We have to look in the mirror. We have to see, what am I here to learn? How is the universe asking me to grow in character and grow in my own maturity and my personal development? Because that, to me, is where the action is. As soon as we start to tap into that, we are on the royal road, I think, to healing.
Excellently put. Absolutely. What role do you think the quality of food, GMOs, fast food, plays in people's struggle?
Quality of food is everything. If somebody put a gun to my head and said, okay, you have to boil down all of the best nutritional advice in the world into one sentence, and this is what everybody would practice, then I would say, okay, eat the highest possible quality version of whatever food you're going to eat. So if you're going to eat the highest quality version, a fruit, the highest quality version, a hamburger, the highest quality version. To me, that means real, It means locally grown. It means organically grown. It can mean fresh. It can mean non-GMO. It can mean no substances, chemicals, residues, pesticides, herbicides, that hormones that are simply, excuse me, not natural to the food chain. They're not recognizable by evolution, by our DNA. So we are playing a very, very, just a bad gambling game with our health and our future generations, because we're already realizing through the study of epigenetics and genetics that poor quality diet and the ramifications thereof can be passed down to several generations at least. So quality of food is everything. Poor quality food will cause us to overeat. It can cause us to binge eat. And it can lead to every health challenge that the human mind can possibly imagine. We've got to turn the corner on that one. We really do.
Absolutely. Well, the GMO and the way they're ruining the food supplies is for the most part, or can be irreversible. So it is really important to get people on board with that. But what do you do to combat? People will say, "Oh, but Mark, it's expensive to eat organic food."
It is a little more expensive. I agree. It's also expensive to be sick. It's expensive to be
Exactly.
fatigued. It's expensive to be depressed. It's expensive to be low mood. It's expensive to wake up every day with joint pain. It's expensive to wake up every day in brain fog. It's expensive to not have your best health. So forget about health insurance. Eating good food is probably the best health insurance you could possibly do.
I agree. I agree. Can you tell us what the nutrigenomic breakthrough is?
What is the nutrigenomic breakthrough? You know, it's really it's the understanding these days that we are okay. Most people believe I am the product of my genetics. And if I have brown eyes, that's permanent. I have brown eyes. I'm a male, that's permanent. I'm a male. Okay, most likely true. There are certain aspects of genetics that are kind of here to stay. But at the same time, there is epigenetics, there is nutrigenomics, there is the manner in which the foods we eat, the air we breathe, the thoughts we think, exercise that we do, all of those impact gene expression, sometimes within moments, sometimes within minutes. So, in a sense, genetics loads the gun.
Have I lost you, Mark? Are you there?
No, there was just a very intense static or something. If you're moving papers around, the microphone picks it up dramatically, so I couldn't hear anything.
Okay. No, I wasn't, but I just wanted to make sure I still had you.
Yeah, so great. So genetics loads the gun, but your environment pulls the trigger. Environment meaning, what am I feeding myself? What am I exposing myself to? Air, water, exercise, environment, sun. And what we are discovering is that there are specific foods, vitamins, substances, herbs that will literally turn genes on and off. So it is no longer, just because you have a gene for alcoholism doesn't mean you're going to be alcoholic. It's what you do in your life that will switch that gene on or off. So the power lies with us. So that's the nutrigenomic breakthrough, to understand that every time you eat, that meal is talking to your genes. It's talking to your DNA material and instantly giving it feedback and instantly programming it. That is a phantasmagorical concept, which is true. And it's a game changer, I feel, and a lot of people feel, a lot of us feel, when it comes to just how we are looking at ourselves, at the world, and at nutrition.
Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was my thoughts on that.
Well, a lot of people view the body as a mass, a three-dimensional mass, but what you're referring to actually is that we're an energy system and that you can positively influence the energy system, and it's incumbent upon us to positively influence the energy system, wouldn't you say?
Yes, and not only is it incumbent, but Dr. Sally, it's a fascinating thing to do. See, to me, what we're talking about is interesting. It's amazing. And you can be a detective or a scientist of your own body, and you don't have to be an actual scientist or an actual detective to then start to notice, oh, I eat certain foods. How does that impact my body? I take certain supplements. I take certain herbs. I do certain health practices. How does that impact me? That to me is interesting because we have such a huge say in how we feel and how we express and sort of the energy and the vitality that we walk around with. Um, what a lot of power we have in just the choices that we make. So to me, all I'm saying is it's fascinating stuff. And it surprises me that a lot of people just aren't more fascinated with it.
It is fascinating, absolutely. Uh, some people will say that water is a problem. Drinking too much water, drinking too little water. What's your take on water?
I am a firm believer that as a culture, we have not valued water in the way that we should. So there's a lot of humans for many years who have been running around the planet dehydrated because oftentimes what happens when one is dehydrated, one thing that happens is you'll go into a mild stress response, a little bit of heart rate up, a little bit of blood pressure up. You will have potentially a blood sugar spike and a blood sugar drop, and you'll feel irritable and fatigued. And when people have that little blood sugar drop and they feel irritable and fatigued, what do? They reach for sugar or they reach for coffee, or they reach for some kind of pick me up, and they mistake the signals for thirst for a need for more sugar and caffeine. So most people do not have a good connection to their thirst mechanism. That being said, many moons ago, these admonitions started coming out. Everybody needs to drink 8 glasses of water per day, which I thought was a little bit silly because everybody's different. Um, I would speak to women in their 70s who were, weighed 130 pounds, who were complaining that they were in absolute pain trying to drink 8 glasses of water a day. Very different if you're a 24-year-old professional athlete, in terms of how much liquid you're going to consume. So, of course, it depends on your lifestyle. It depends on where you live. It depends on your environment, well, the amount of physical activity. But I think the bottom line is we need to pay attention to water. We probably need to experiment with drinking more. It's a good experiment just to see how we feel. And it's also a great idea to pay attention to the quality of our water just as one would pay attention to the quality of our food. Our water sources are dramatically poisoned. Those poisons are coming in through agriculture, through fracking, through air pollution that seeps into the ground, through so many different ways. We fluoridate our water, which is a proven neurotoxin. It's to me, it's some of the biggest nonsense we've ever done to the food chain and to the water chain. But any way you can really finely filter your water or get high quality spring water, it takes us back to how we naturally evolved on this earth. Water probably has a lot more mystery to it than we know.
Do you think that the fluoride in the water has made us complacent about our eating habits and life in general?
Well, study that came out of Harvard showed that in populations where you're drinking fluoridated water compared to other populations that aren't drinking fluoridated water, the IQ of children Non-fluoridated populations is greater. The IQ in fluoridated populations is lower. That's a pretty eye-opening fact. So does it make us complacent? It probably dumbs us down a little bit. Literally, there it is, a study about intelligence quotient and a form of fluoride that was used in World War II as a neurotoxin. So it's an awful strategy that we've come up with. If your government really cared about your teeth, for goodness sakes, they wouldn't be subsidizing sugar and subsidizing so much of the mass market farming industry that is producing the raw materials for the junk food breakfast cereals and all the candies, etc. You really want to help teeth? Talk about that. Don't put a chemical into the water. That's harming us.
Right on, right on. And I think people should pick up on that amazing suggestion. Get your water better. So let's move on to another topic. How do you harness the power of the brain, the gut brain?
The gut brain is also called the enteric nervous system. We've probably known about this feature of the body, arguably probably since the 1870s. But what happens is there's a separate yet interconnected nervous system that innervates your digestive tract. And I'm talking about everything from mouth to esophagus to stomach to gallbladder to large and small intestines. And it's this separate yet interconnected nervous system has as many nerve cells as your spinal cord, approximately 100 million, which simply means that there's a ton of intelligence that resides within the digestive tract, which is clearly why many people will say, I had a gut feeling about that person. I had a gut instinct about that. People don't say I had an elbow feeling or a kidney feeling because there's not as much intelligence in those parts of the human anatomy. But we have a tremendous amount of insight. Your digestive system must be brilliant in order to take pounds of substances every day that are not us. The hamburgers and the French fries and the Wonder Bread and the apples and the watermelon and the whatever it is you're eating, and it's got to take that, extract what the body needs, excrete what it doesn't need, turn it into building blocks for the body, for bone, for organs, for tissues, and turn it into energy, and do so in an efficient manner that takes a tremendous amount of intelligence. So, sometimes scientists say we only use a small fraction of our brain, and there's a lot of controversy around that statement that we only use 10% of our brain. But I'm going to tell you something. Me being around now for 50 plus years, I've observed that it is true. Most people are only using a smaller percentage of their potential, of their brain potential, of their personal potential, of their metabolic potential. So to me, the same thing goes for our gut brain. We aren't using its full capacity. So one of the ways to start to harness the intelligence there is to simply check in and notice your body. When you eat something, ask the question, how is this feeling? Does this feel right for my body? And after the meal, how am I feeling now? Do I have more energy, less energy? Oh, I noticed I just ate this meal and my nose is stuffed and I'm starting to get a headache and I'm a little drowsy and I feel like a couch potato. I wonder if there's a connection between how I feel right now and what I just ate 15 minutes ago. That is using not only the intelligence of your brain, but the intelligence of your gut. You are scanning your body. So it's really checking in. It's using that intuitive muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. It's almost like asking oneself, what would be the best thing for me to eat right now? And just to take a moment and be with that question and notice what answer your body comes up with. What happens is the midsection, the gut, the digestive organs for a lot of people becomes a place of, it becomes a battleground because we can eat so much junk and we're taking all these digestive aids and antacids because we're not listening to the body. We're polluting it with foods that don't work for it because we don't pay attention. People who are in constant digestive upset because they're eating foods that they're sensitive or allergic to aren't really asking their body enough questions. So the short answer is ask your body. Question it as a practice. Sometimes you'll be right, sometimes you'll be wrong, but you're building up that muscle.
Yes, ask your body and being in the now.
Yeah. Because it's pretty much the only time we have is the now, as far as I can tell.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What is the most inspiring story, turnaround story that you have?
In terms of,
Getting someone back on track to be in the now, to observe what they're eating, to get their health back on track.
sure, I see. Um, I would probably say this was a client who profoundly influenced my practice. Saw him many, many, many moons ago. He actually flew in. I was living in New York at the time, and he flew in from Toronto, Canada, to come see me for his digestive complaints. For some reason, he had heard that I was a great nutritionist. The man is a medical doctor. He's a Chinese medical doctor, originally from China, now practicing and living in Toronto. He had been practicing and living in Toronto for about 20 years. And he experiences extreme digestive discomfort after every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And he has tried Chinese medicine, he's tried acupuncture, he's tried herbs, he's tried everything in the traditional Western American medical pantheon. Nothing works for him, so he's sort of willing to try anything. So here I am in my session with him, and I said, okay, asking a bunch of questions. What do you eat? And here's his diet. In the morning, on the way to his office to see his patients, he stops by McDonald's. He eats 2 Egg McMuffins in the car on the way to work. Great. What do you eat for lunch? He says, well, I drive back to McDonald's. I get 2 Big Macs, and I eat them in the car on the way back to the office. I go, great. How about dinner? He says, well, dinner on the way home, I usually stop by, get a slice of pizza, or I get a Hero, and, I sit in front of the TV and I eat. So he averages about 5 minutes for every meal. And as you could tell, he doesn't have the healthiest diet. And I said to him, I think I might have found your problem. And he says to me, I need to tell you right now, before you say anything else, he said, I am not going to change my diet. I am a creature of habit. I have my life completely scheduled, and I'm just not going to change what I eat. So, and he was serious. I said, okay, great. I think I could actually still help you. And what I said to him was, listen, I want you to, when you have your Egg McMuffins in the morning on the way to work, I actually want you to stop the car, park in the parking lot at McDonald's, take 15 minutes, eat slowly, take 5 to 10 long, slow, deep breaths, relax, savor, and enjoy your Egg McMuffins. Next, I want you to do the exact same thing with your 2 Big Macs at lunch. I don't want you to eat them in the car while you're driving through Toronto traffic. I want you to sit in the parking lot. I want you to eat your Big Macs, enjoy them, take time, put your body into a relaxation response. Here's how. And then at dinner, fine, I just want you to take a half hour for dinner. Eat it slowly. Enjoy your food. So, of course, he negotiates me down to 10 minutes for breakfast and 15 minutes for lunch, whatever. So we had a few more sessions. I gave him some more tips about different things, but really, that was it. I get a call 2 weeks later. He is the happiest man in the universe. He says to me, you're not going to believe it. After 20 years, my digestive complaints are completely gone. And he said, and you're not going to believe this. I hate McDonald's and I hate Big Macs. And I said, what do you mean? He says, I've been eating this food for 20 years since I moved to America. He said, but I eat it really fast. I didn't realize how bad it tastes. He said, and I didn't realize that I smother my Big Macs with ketchup because they taste so awful. Have you ever tried to savor a Big Mac? I said, not really, no. So in that course of time, he changed his diet. Not because I told him to, because he told me he wasn't going to listen anyway. He changed his diet because he slowed down. He put his body into a relaxation response. His body wisdom came online. The wisdom of the brain and the belly, the enteric nervous system, woke up. His body started giving him feedback. Why? Because he was patient enough and slowed down enough to hear it. Most humans are moving too fast to notice what's going on around them, whether it's with their body, with food, with their loved ones. So this is a man who transformed and changed his lifestyle, not because I told him to, but because he did practices that elevated his body intelligence. So that's probably my favorite story to tell.
Folks, isn't that an inspiring story? That's just great. That's great. You know, something that I tell my clients is your stomach doesn't have any teeth. You got to keep that food in your mouth and chew it well because your stomach doesn't have any teeth. And they look at me in surprise.
It's great. I love that.
Couple more minutes we've got. Can you give the audience your best aha for them to take away?
Well, I don't know if this is my best aha, but it's at least hopefully a very good aha and maybe even a great one. And the aha is that when we work on our personal growth, at the same time we work on the health of the body, both of them will synergize to create results that neither alone can do. So oftentimes people are trying to fix their health issues, fix their weight, fix their digestion or their immune issues or their fatigue, and they're looking for medical or nutritional strategies alone to help themselves. And as I said before, food is a doorway, but any dis-ease, any symptom, any health challenge is also a great teacher. It's telling us something. So what is it that we need to learn from our health challenges, from our eating challenges, from our weight, from our overeating, from our digestive issues, from our low energy? Because there's always a lesson in it. So yeah, change your diet. Yeah, eat better food. Absolutely. But at the same time, I'll give you a quick example, like something like fatigue. Oftentimes I've noticed that people who end up being very fatigued, they actually need fatigue. The fatigue is trying to tell them something. The fatigue is trying to wake them up. It might be telling them that you're moving too fast in your life. You're too stressed out. You've taken on too much. You need more self-care. Yes, fatigue might be I'm allergic to gluten, or I am sensitive to sugar, and that's causing me fatigue as well. But what I'm saying is when you listen for all the possible dimensions, what is this teaching me personally about myself, and what might it be teaching me that I have to learn about my body? Those two approaches, when done together, create a very powerful synergy that I have noticed yields faster results and happier clients and people.
Absolutely. Excellent point. I had chronic Lyme disease for a long time, and after a while I realized that it was bringing me down to my knees so I could slow down and change the direction of my life. And I think that's a very powerful message for people.
Amen to that, and good for you for approaching it finally in the right way.
Absolutely. You mentioned gluten. What do you recommend for people what's the best gluten test for individuals? There's some controversy about that.
In my personal opinion, there are all kinds of tests one can use, in terms of the biomedical markers. Really the best test in the world, the gold standard for sensitivity or allergy to anything, is to get rid of it for 2 or 3 weeks and notice how you feel. That will tell you everything. Because the truth is, just about any medical test you do will have a certain standard deviation. It will have a margin of error. Let's just put it like that. People are getting, you can go to the hospital right now and be tested for cancer and find out you have cancer and find out you don't. So that's not uncommon. So the same thing happens with different kinds of allergy testing, but the bottom line is if you suspect or your practitioner suspects, eliminate it for 2-3 weeks and then see how you feel. Notice, have your symptoms changed any? Has your energy changed? Has your cognition, your mood, has that changed? Has your weight changed? Has your bloating changed? Has your digestion changed? And then watch what happens when you start to add that food back in. Do your symptoms start to return? Then you know, if all that actually happens, then you know, wow, I'm sensitive or allergic to that food.
That's such sound advice. Really great stuff. Before we finish, can you tell the audience what your personal supplement regimen is on a daily basis?
Oh, that would probably be impossible because I experiment with different things daily, weekly, monthly. So I don't do anything necessarily regularly. Probably the one thing I do regularly is less of a supplement and more just a nutrition strategy. Is I make sure that I'm getting a variety of healthy fats in my diet, and I make sure that I'm getting a variety of probiotic-rich foods. Those, to me, are two of the greatest sort of food supplements that you can get in food form that you can't go wrong with. So many good health food stores these days have all kinds of fresh, fermented vegetable products, sauerkrauts, kimchis, fermented drinks, and I'm not talking about kombucha, but fermented probiotic drinks that are just A plus for the body. So that's what I would recommend if you're thinking, gosh, I would like to supplement my diet, but I'm not sure what. Start to rotate different healthy oils. Buy a good quality olive oil. Experiment with a good quality coconut oil. Take a few tablespoons of flax oil a day and just rotate them around and notice how you feel. Notice your skin, your hair, your nails. Notice your digestion, your elimination. Oftentimes, when you start to include more healthy fat in your diet, if you've been deficient, you feel a lot better.
And folks, those oils should be organic, and the fermented vegetables are much better than popping a probiotic pill.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Just do it the real way. Why not?
Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share, Mark?
Oh my goodness. Well, if people want to learn more about the work, you can go to our website. It's for the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. That's the organization I founded, where we have trainings for professionals and programs for the public, and that's psychologyofeating.com. If people want, we have a free video series right on the homepage that you can sign up for, where I teach about, some of the great principles of eating psychology, a lot of practical information that you can use. We have a ton of free resources there. It's endless how much you can learn.
It's a beautiful website, and it's so informative. I highly encourage everybody to check it out, get involved. It will change your life.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that, Dr. Sally.
I believe it. I believe it. Thank you so much. You, I'm sure, have impacted people's lives in such a positive way with this podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. And we honor you in your journey for helping people in this very complicated and difficult arena.
Thank you so much, and thank you for doing the great work that you do and getting great health information out there and being such a gracious host and interviewer. I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much.